Yes, here we are. It is Monday, September 7, 2020. And the Storytelling by and for Adults series. And Anubha Tiwary, you are the first storyteller. Please introduce yourself. Go ahead.
Captain.
I'm Anubha. I'm from New Delhi. Basically, I'm a teacher, but stories have always fascinated me since from the childhood. So I love to read them and tell them. So the story that I'm going to tell you today is I've adapted it from the book, The Indian Epics Retold, and it's written by R.K. Narayanan. You all know this because of Malgudi Days. It's the most popular series, but this is also one of the books which I've always loved to read. And it was like you have to tell the story that you have always loved. So it is the story.
Anubha, before you begin, there seems to be some talking in the background.
Yes.
Can you
I think someone is...
Can they go into a different room or something?
Yes, I think yes. Somebody is... No, it's not from my side. It was somewhere else.
Oh, well, everyone else is muted. Okay, anyway, it seems to be better now, so go ahead. Sorry to interrupt.
Okay, fine. So this story is from the book Indian Epics Retold. It's about a kingdom called Uttar Pandava, somewhere in the foots of Himalayas. And it's from the ancient time, long times ago. When I say ancient, it's really old time. So there was a king called Ravana. He was praised by all. He used to take care of his subjects, and subjects also gave equal respect to him. He loved them, and they also loved their king because he was always protecting them from everyone. And it was a very happy kingdom. So it was just a usual day when king was sitting in his assembly hall. People were coming with their disputes if they had any. And if they had any matter, then there were ministers, there were king's advisors, some other people who were always there to attend the meeting, some businessmen. So it was just a usual day. Somebody walked in. So king just asked, Ravana asked that who he is, because he was looking somebody from a very different background. He was a bare-bodied person. He was a thin man with white hair, and he was wearing a rosary in his neck. It was a bit of gold. He had a shawl on his shoulders. It was of pashmina. It was showing that he is somebody from a very strong background. And there was a strong glow on his face that everybody was attracted towards him. So king just asked who he is. So one of the minister came and said that he is a magician and he needs some audience. So king was really excited to see him and said, come, please, I welcome you. So what are you going to do today? So he said, I'm here to do some magic. Who said, okay, wow, but I'm quite bored of watching, a rope going up in the sky and a girl is just crawling upwards. And I'm so bored of watching those skins of mongoose, dead mongoose and snakes fighting. I don't want any that kind of magic. So he said, I'm not going to do anything like that. So he said, all right, if you want to do something like you are going to make somebody, you are going to turn a stone into a flower, then also I'm not interested. He said, sir, I'm not going to do anything of that sort. Believe me, just give me some time. I just need your attention. So king said, all right, go ahead. Where's your bag? He said, I don't have a bag. So he said, if I'm not able to entertain you, you can cut off my head. So king was like, oh, you don't love your head? You find just small use of it, that you can cut it off just because of the small thing. So king, he said, no, I believe in myself and I know that I am quite capable to amuse you. So king said, go ahead. What you're going to do? Do you have some bag of magic tricks or anything? He said, I don't have anything. I just have these two hands and I have two eyes. So king said, all right, that sounds interesting. So what am I supposed to do? He said, just look into my eyes. And magician told king to look into his eyes. And in a moment, king felt himself like entire assembly hall was disappeared, and he could not see any of the ministers, anyone, no subject, nobody was around. All he could see was a green field, and there was a horse, a black horse, and king just saw that the horse was looking quite wild, and it was quite aggressive one, just galloping throughout the field. And now, being a mighty king, it was like a challenge to him that I have to go and ride this. I have to take the control. So king just walked towards it and tried to take the reins in his hands. But now the horse was also quite mighty and was just tried to struggle, and he was just running around. Now the king was all into dust, but he took it like a challenge that I have to ride this horse. And finally, being a king, he could ride the horse. But the moment it sat over the horse, it was like a thunder to him. He said, wow, what is going on? And now the horse was running really fast. It was just galloping up, down, here and there. And the king was no option left. He just had to hold his head with his arms. It was just flying. It started to fly up in the sky. Didn't know where the horse is taking the king. The speed was so fast that king could not keep his eyes open, and he had to close his eyes because he was really scared. He had the fear that I am going to fall down and I might get hurt. Next moment, he was up in the clouds, and then the horse took him away just from his kingdom. He didn't know where he is going. It was like, it seemed to him like months have passed and he was on the horse, and the time was just flying. And finally, the horse just dropped him down, and he came down just holding a branch of a tree and was just hanging. All he could see were monkeys around, and monkeys were and he just looked at them and he was quite scared. But those monkeys were like, they didn't care, you are a king or whatever. He wanted to tell them, I am the king, treat me like, give me some respect. But obviously he knew that monkeys don't understand anything. And finally he was dropped down. He was so tired. He looked at his clothes. They were totally tattered. He had dust all over his body. And he forgot that where he belonged to. When he woke up, he didn't know for how long did he sleep. He woke up and he found himself to be in the middle of the jungle. All he could hear were the sounds of the wild animals. He was scared, hungry, tired. Imagine like after the flight, he was here. So he was so hungry, and then he opened his eyes and he saw that a young girl was standing right in front of him. And that young girl was carrying a basket in her hands. And king looked at her, and he was so hungry that he just asked her that, what are you carrying in your hand? She said that I am carrying food for my father. So what is this? What is it? I just want to know, what is this food? She said, I have cooked hog in this. It's the meat of hog. Tell me about it. I am very hungry. I want to know all about the food. She said that in my hamlet, people went for the hunting, and they could control that wild boar, and then just killed it. And then I got this much piece, and now I've cooked it with some wild grains of rice. Oh my God, I'm so hungry. I want to eat it. Just give it to me. Tell me more about it. Then I cooked it. I just put it under the earth, and then it was dried up, and finally I cooked it, and now I'm taking it for my father. Please give it to me. I'm very hungry. King was bleeding, but the girl said, this is for my father, and you know, I'm a Chandal. You know, I'm the daughter of a Chandal. I mean, Chandal is the lowest community. She said that I belong to the smallest caste. I cannot give it to you. So he said, I am okay. I was a king. I am not a king anymore. I am a Chandal. Just give this food to me. She said, no, you are not a Chandal, and this food I am taking for my father, I will not give you. He was just so hungry that he wanted the food at any cost. So that girl said, do one thing, marry me and you also become Chandal and then you can have this food. So he said, okay, fine, I will marry you. Just give this food to me. So she said, come with me, come to my father, and then only you can marry me. Ask him. So he said, all right, I will come with you. They went to her father, and the father was a Chandal. He was cutting wood, and he was very old man, totally got, and he was a very fragile old man. So he requested, can I marry your daughter? So that man said, have you lost your mind? Have you seen this girl? She's hair-lipped girl. She's so dark, dusky. I don't even know from which concubine I have got this girl. I don't remember even her mother. And you want to marry this girl? You are a Kshatriya. How can you marry her? So he was, no, I just want to marry her. Please let me. And then he took a promise that you will always take care of my daughter and my family. He married that girl. Year passed by. He was always King forgot that where he belonged to. He was taking care of the family. He became like a hunter. He started wearing the skin clothes. The bark of the skin were his final clothes. His nails were like claws. And he had 4 children, 4 sons from that ugly woman. But King forgot totally that where he belonged to. He adjusted himself to this jungle life, and he was quite okay with that. He had 4 sons, so out of which 3 he did not like them because they were always sitting with their mother and always chit-chatting. And the youngest one was someone whom he really loved because he was always taking care of the father. He thought that these boys are young now, they should go for hunting. But even then I am working. He might be like 70 years old, but still he was going out to hunt. Finally, there was a famine. It struck the jungle and they just lost their livelihood. It was totally dried up. There were no vegetation. All the animals were dead. They didn't know what to do. So finally, the fire struck. And there was a forest fire, they had to move from there. King didn't know what to do, so finally he also took his family and they decided to move. Still they were expecting that King will go and hunt for them. And they were always, you did not get anything, what kind of man you are? You promised my father, you will always take care of me. You forgot your promise? What kind of man you are? She turned out to be a totally nagging woman, but King had no choice. She was always like, he loved her. All right, she's my wife. I gave a promise. And she gave me that food, she remembered. Then those 3 boys, the elder ones, they knew that finally, if this man is not going to get anything for me, I should leave. So 3 of them left. Only the youngest one was with King and the wife. One day, the little boy, he was like 10, 12 years old boy, he fainted. And all he was saying that I need food, I need meat to eat, please give me some food. And the king, he didn't know what to do. He tried hard, maybe I get something to eat, but he could not arrange anything. Now, he heard the whispering, the murmuring sound of that boy, and some idea came to his mind. He told his wife that he wants meat, even you are hungry, so just wait for some time. I am going to get some food. You see that rock? Just behind that you will see fire burning. In next 30 minutes, you come and have your food. Keep the salt ready. And wife said, what about you? And the king's heart melted hearing this. Over these years, he had never heard these words of care, that keep the salt ready, that she cared for him. But he said, I will be back, don't worry, you will get your food, but don't move from here before 30 minutes. And king went behind the rock. He just collected some leaves and he lit the fire, and he kept on saying, keep the salt ready, keep the salt ready. And he just jumped into the fire, screaming that just keep the salt ready. And the moment he jumped into the fire, he opened his eyes and he found himself to be sitting in the court. And all the ministers, everyone was around, and his favorite one was also standing right next to him. And he asked him, "Did I sleep?" And the minister said, "No, you just blinked." And the king burst into tears. He was crying and he said, "Where is that magician? I want to meet him. Where is he?" And he was gone. And king saw the entire those years. He said, "He took away everything from me." What kind of magic it was. And that's it. So that's the story.
Superb, Anubha. It's nice.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Okay, so let me just understand. The story began where the magician came into the king's place, and then the king saw in the magician's eyes a beautiful horse. Is that correct? Yes? Can you hear me? Anubha?
Yes, I can hear you. Yes.
Yes. You know, I think I'm going to shift to a different room where I have a better internet connection. But okay, so the king went into the eyes of the magician, and there he saw a horse and he wanted to ride the horse, correct? And then the horse flew up into the air, and then the horse came down, or the man came down and ended up in a jungle. Okay, I think that it will be more clear and effective if you really do something special for these bizarre magical transitions. For example, when the king goes into the eyes of the magician, you know, you didn't really even stop when that happened. There needs to be some, just a second, let me go off this pin. Yeah, when he goes inside the eyes of the magician, you really have to give that some dramatic shape. And then again, when the horse leaves the ground and starts flying, you have to give some shape. You were just going on and on and on as if it was all the same. But you need to, you know, do something special with your voice or your body when these transitions happen. And so so the king was flying, and then the king was in the jungle, and then the king found that young woman, and then they got married, right? And they were married for many years. And then what happens at the end of the story?
At the end of the story, the man died, actually. I mean, the magic, the spell was over.
But was the king still inside the eyes of the magician?
Yes.
And he died there?
It was just he jumped into the fire. So obviously he died in the story, but he was awake in his real world. It was just a spell of magic.
The king was inside the eyes of the magician, and then you say the king died, but at one point you said the king woke up as if from a dream. Is that correct?
Yes, and then the magician was not there. Back to the court. When he opened his eyes, the magician was not there. I mean, and when he asked the courtier, that the minister, that what happened to me, did I sleep? He said, "You just blinked." So, I mean, all this happened. It is basically a story about that light. You know, there are the planets like Jupiter. I mean, there are different planets where the duration of days are different. So, the magician actually took king to some other world from his magic, where he saw entire like 70 years right in front of his eyes in one blink.
Yes, the king was inside the eyes of the magician for the king, it seemed like many, many years, but maybe it was just a blink of an eye. But what I'm asking is, at the end, you say the king woke up, does that mean that the king came out of the eyes of the magician? if you set up a dramatic fictional frame, you're going into the frame, you have to take us out of the frame. There needs to be a little more clarity and marking. As I say, a marking of going into this magical realm, and then a marking, well, by waking up from a dream, I guess he came out of it. But you see what I'm asking for? A little bit more markings along the way of when we're going into something and when we're coming out of something. Anyone else have any comments or questions? Ansuk? Yeah, you have to turn on your mic. Good, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. In Korea, we have a similar old story. It called Dream, and a monk who celibate, so should not marry woman, but once he saw a beautiful girl to come to the temple, so this young monk had a desire to make love with her. Then he just prayed hard in front of the Buddha, Kwanseum Buddha, and he didn't know, but he fell asleep, and in the dream, he just have this another world experience to run away with this girl and got married. And at first they have happy life and gave birth children, but later had really difficulties. So hunger and poverty destroyed the family, and finally, just the woman and he lost their children because of the poverty and devastated, and they just had found no more love left inside them. So they said goodbye, and he just separate and started his new journey again. Then he woke up. It was only a few hours sleep, and his whole young man's black hair became white. And he just solved his desire and became a very good monk from that time, kind of story. So I found similar from this story. The young king, he had maybe inside lots of desire or arrogance or anything, but through this magician's experience to live another life in the dream, he just sacrificed himself to save the family or all those burdens on his shoulders. He just, I think, those blink of time, he realized the meaning of life or all the desire kind of things. So a kind of enlightenment. I understand that way.
Okay, wonderful. Barry?
Yes, Anubha, I just want to say I thought it was a lovely telling, and I appreciate how expressive you were with it, and sharing what the characters were thinking and feeling. And kind of like Ansuk, that it reminds me of a story that I know and that I've told from the Jewish tradition, also of kind of a encounter with a magician, and in the blink of an eye, going on a wild adventure. As Eric said, a bizarre adventure that is very dreamlike. And I think it's a wonderful story for the time that we're in, because I think that we all, whatever date it was, March 13th, March 14th, suddenly just felt like our world shifted. And that we're in this kind of strange dream where we're confined to our homes and our work lives are changed and our personal lives are changed and so on. And that we hope that someday maybe we will instantly be pulled out of it. That in a way, this virus is like a magician that has transformed us. So I think it's a very interesting story for the times that we are living in now, with a sudden upheaval into a world that we don't recognize. So thank you very much for sharing that.
Wonderful. Yeah, the way time passes, 50 years pass in the blink of an eye. It reminds me of another story of a guru asked his student to get a cup of water from the river. And the student went to the river and dipped the cup in the river, but just then the river flooded. And the student was carried away down the river and out into the ocean and out into the island, an island in the middle of the ocean. And he was on that island for many years until many years later, a tsunami came and swept him back to the land, back up the river. And he landed just at the side of the river where he had been so many years ago. And his cup was full of water. So he went back to where the guru was sitting and gave the cup to the guru, and the guru said, thank you. But it was, 30 years later, but it didn't matter. So I think what I get from that story is that it's the intention that's important. It doesn't matter how long it takes. All right. Anyone else? Any thoughts? Comments? Questions? Do you have anyone want to ask any questions to the king or the magician? This magician's a little dangerous. I'm afraid to even talk to him. Who knows? Who knows what could happen to it? If you can get sucked into his eyes and disappear for 50 years just by looking at him, who knows what will happen if you talk to him?
Eric, hello. Is my voice audible?
Yes.
First of all, I would like to congratulate Anubha for wonderful story. I really like it. Actually, she is also a teacher, and I'm also a student. Love such types of stories in the class. They love to hear the stories of magic, king, and such types of climax a lot. So from my side, I think that wonderful, and the way she has presented, I admire her effort. Thanks.
Very good. Okay. Any other thoughts, or shall we go on to the next story? I do want to say, Anubha, you did go a little overtime. I think the story was about 15 minutes. And I really don't know what to do about that kind of thing. Everyone, please send suggestions by email later. What can we do when that happens? But what we can do is appeal to the storytellers to practice and time your performances in advance. And if you find your story is coming into 15 minutes, you need to edit it down to 10 minutes. Now, editing, whether editing writing or editing a performance, is a very important and challenging skill. And I'll be happy to help with editing. I'm the child of 2 magazine editors in terms of writing, and I feel I'm pretty skilled with editing drama also. So I can help edit, but let's do our best with that. Okay, Geethanjali, are you ready?
Yes, Eric.
Okay, please introduce yourself and the story, and please tell us a story.
Yeah, thank you. Good evening, friends. First of all, in India, this week we are celebrating Teachers' Day. So to show my gratitude to my teacher and mentor, Eric Miller. Thank you so much, Eric, for bringing me out of the nutshell and making me a storyteller. So thank you. Having said that, let's jump into the story. So my name is Geethanjali Javed, and I was an ex-teacher, and now currently I'm a professional storyteller. And personal storytelling is my forte. I do stories to kids, adults, but I think personal story is my forte. So let's get into it. So when I was a kid, my father put me in one of the biggest convents in my city, Chennai, where the famous boards from actors and actress boards, they all studied in that convent. And I studied in such kind of school. But when my father, he got transferred due to his job, we were taken to the suburbs of the city. And my father could not find any such school except for a government school. He had no other choice. So So I had to get admitted in that school. We had 5 sections. Each class had 5 sections. 4 sections were of the local language and only one was the English medium section. And obviously I was put up in the English medium. So I was in this 7th standard when I went to this government school. And so naturally I had this show off or boasting kind of attitude as a child. And I was popular with the teachers. They loved me for the kind of fluency I had. And regarding the Tamil medium students, you know, the local medium students, I did not give a damn. I never bothered. But I was friendly with teachers and my own class, my English medium friends. They all loved me because I could speak better English. And I took part in each and every activity, extracurricular activity of my school. And I became quite famous. We all know, you know, in schools, we are separated into divisions, yellow house, green house, red house, like that. So it was the sports time. I belonged to the greenhouse. And so my captain, who was in the 12th, and at that time I was doing my 10th. I was in the 10th standard. My captain, the 12th, called me and said, Geethanjali, I think I'm planning to put you as a vice captain of the greenhouse. Needless to say, being the attitude I had, boastful and show off, that's it. After having a chat with my captain, I came down to my class and said, yeah, everything's done. I'm the vice captain of greenhouse, and all that talking and boasting and show off, everything is starting. And it was time to pick up the march past team. I picked my own team because I was given in charge. I picked the march past team and started giving them practice also. 2 days passed by. Another girl, I still remember her name. Her name was Rubina. She came and joined the march past team as a trainer. She started giving training. I said, Rubina, okay, wait. You see, I'm the vice captain. My captain said so. And what are you doing here? Why are you giving the training? She said, the same captain appointed me as the vice captain. You may be popular for the extracurricular activities, but I'm very popular in the sports area. So she said to take care of the march past team. And we kind of literally had an argument, but then we finally, just for the team spirit, decided to postpone the final conclusion. We said, okay, both of us will give training and let the captain decide. So both of us were vigorous in giving training to our team. And then it was a day before the D-Day, the rehearsals. At that time only, the captain, she came down from a class and she joined the team, literally the ground. And we both told our cases to the captain. See, you said, I'm the captain. And then Rubina said, see, no, you said I'm the captain, right? And we literally started fighting in front of her. And then, while all the other teams were giving practice and were serious with their dress code and their shoes and the socks, we both of us were fighting for the vice captaincy. The whole ground was watching us. They were watching the greenhouse. It was like a little tamasha going in the ground. And then we just became a headache to the captain. And she said, okay, listen, now listen. Yes, it was me. I just told you as well as told Rubina to take care of this team because I thought we may win the cup, giving extra training and all that stuff. See how things she was. Okay. And then finally it was decided that a name will be chosen by, selecting through the lottery system, through the lot system. So our names were written on a piece of paper and then through lottery system, our names were, one name had to be chosen. Whose name came out? Any guesses? It was my opponent's name. Rubina's name came out. And I was like this show off. I had a girl, the girl with the attitude. And now literally I was devastated. I was pushed, I was crushed. Everything gone wrong. And all my days of giving training gone waste. And now not even the vice captain. I was pushed in front of the whole ground and all the teams were watching us. And I was literally like crying. Geethanjali, oh, she was not made the vice captain. Oh my God, really? Ah, she needs it. Ah, very good. It's happening. It's happening. Karma, karma. My friends said this. I could hear them say at that time. I wanted to cry, but my ego never permitted. And so Rubina was made the vice captain. All I wanted to do was have that placard in my hand and watch and march in front of my team. That placard, that vice captain, that's it. Gone. And there was jubilation for Rubina's team. And everyone was, talking at the back. They were laughing. Look at this girl, look at this girl, look at this girl. Geeta, yay, and all this booze and all that. But one thing I never did was, I never quit. All I did was for the spirit of the team. So the next day, bearing all the tantrums, all the humiliations, on the sports day, I went and joined the team, March Past team, and stood in the 5th row and completed the event. I had tears in my eyes as I marched, as I did the March Past. And when Rubina had the placard, I did have tears, but somehow deep inside, I was a little bit good. I had the team spirit in me. I stood in the team and I completed the event, though my team did not win on that day. We did not win on the sports day. It was such a humiliating season for me, I would call. After the sports day, everyone started talking about me. Hey, look at this girl, Geethanjali, oh, big shot, the boastful. And all nonsense they spoke at the back of me, in front of me. I had to bear. And then I was very spiritual from very young. And then I cried to God, God, what is that? Have I done something wrong? You're correcting me, right? What did I do that you had given me such a big punishment, such a big humiliation? Then I thought, okay, maybe me not talking with this poor Tamil medium girls and showing my attitude, being boastful, a show of peace, and throwing tantrums to everyone. Maybe I should change myself. Maybe I should change my attitude. Yes. From that moment, I changed and I became very submissive, very polite, always laughing and smiling at each and everyone. And in the next 2 years, everyone became my friends. When I reached, all this happened when I was in 10th standard. After 2 years, when I came to the 12th, it was the opening day of the school. The assembly was huge, all the teachers, everyone were present, opening day. And the headmistress, she came to the mic and it was time to announce the captains of the 4 houses, the leaders, the assistant leaders, the school leaders, everyone. And one by one she was saying, and finally, the school pupil leader. I was not bothered about all that was happening. And suddenly, Geethanjali of 12A, you're wanted here. Yes. My call for being the school pupil leader. At last, on the opening day of the school when I was in my 12th standard. I think after I had changed my attitude, God had given me this blessing. And I became the school pupil leader. I did have the opportunity to carry the placard for being the vice captain of a greenhouse team. But then God had a bigger idea, a bigger plan for me. I had the opportunity to carry my school flag as a school pupil leader. And you know what? Taking part in inter-school competitions, I led the team for the March Past as being the school pupil leader, and we had won many competitions in the March Past events. And I returned many times victorious. Till now, when I'm down or low, I reflect, I go back to that story of mine, ponder, I pause, and I think, yes, I'm not now. Maybe God is having a bigger plan for me. I'll wait. I'll have patience. I'll rectify myself. Maybe some changes that need to be made. I study. I do everything I can and simply wait and always think about this little story of mine. I keep saying this story to kids, adults, anywhere, everywhere I go because I just love the story. And yeah, that's the end of the story. Hope you all enjoyed. Thank you.
Wonderful. Okay. Well, with that story, as with many stories, it really begins when a problem comes up, right? And the problem in that story is that this other person was named a co-captain, right?
Yeah.
That's really what set the story in motion. Laura mentioned that. Were you in Laura's workshop last year?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah. Laura mentioned that very prominently, that that at the beginning of a story, okay, but then something happens. And then the rest of the story is about what's going to happen as a result. So you got that very well. Who or what were you looking at as you were telling?
I just poured my heart out because it's very close to me.
No, I mean on a simple-minded physical way. Were you looking at the gallery view, or did you pin an individual, or what image were you looking at?
I always wanted the audience in front of me. That is what a storyteller expects.
So you had
I'm the gallery view. Yeah.
Yeah. So you had us at little rectangles. But the thing is that as you were looking at us, most of the time you were not looking at the camera.
Oh, really?
And yeah, and as you'll notice on the recording, it's frustrating for the viewer if you're not looking in the camera.
Okay.
Because we want so much for the storyteller to, like now, I'm looking into the camera. It feels like I'm talking to each one of you, right?
Actually, I was looking at the audience and I was telling the story.
Yes, I know. That's the paradox of video conferencing. If you look at the images of the people you're talking to, if you look at their eyes, like now I'm looking at some of your eyes, but it looks like I'm looking down, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. Now I'm not looking at any of you. I'm looking in the camera, but it feels like I'm talking to you, right?
Okay.
So that's the thing. Okay. When you're telling, at least, I would say at least half the time, look in the camera, even though you cannot see the people you're talking to directly. It gives such a feeling of involvement and satisfaction for the listener if you are looking, if you seem to be looking them in the eyes.
Okay, fine. Thank you.
That's one thing. Now, okay, now you've told this story a number of times.
Yes.
What were you trying to develop? What were you trying to improve this time, and how do you feel about how you did it?
I think Pandya sir should say this because he was, I remember him attending when I said the story. He should say the difference maybe.
No, we want to know you as the storyteller. What have you been working on?
Before that I used to
bring out this time.
Okay, before that I used to feel the stage fear and all that stuff. But now I have this confidence in me. I can talk even to 1,000 people, a number of people, looking in the eyes, Mm-hmm. So I think that's a development of me. Before that, I used to get, I had this stage fear, but now, no, it's gone, thank God.
And well, I think you were successful with that. I think you were very natural and expressive. Yeah, and so that's coming along well.
Thank you.
I was struck how when when at one point your character asked God, what is wrong? What am I doing wrong? Why am I being punished? And then you yourself, your own conscience answered.
Yes.
I was wondering if God was going to answer, but there was no need for that. Your own conscience spoke to you.
Yes.
And that's really true. Our conscience is like God.
Yeah, it's mirror.
Yeah. Anybody else? Any comments, questions, or do you want to speak to the character? Do you want to speak to anyone in the story?
I'm just waiting for any comments or some feedback, some drawbacks, something, so that I may rectify. I'm still learning, work in progress.
Hi, Geethanjali, Jim here.
Hi.
The feedback I have for you is I think it could be a story that can be trimmed a little more.
Yeah.
I think one of the significant pieces for a story would be how we can shorten it and deliver it in a full punch. I feel it had a little more detail than it needed. My view is that maybe it could be trimmed a little more, shortened a bit more, and then.
Well, for example, what would you trim?
There was a point where I think for me, I felt that the scene where you're going through the whole fight between trying to get the vice captaincy to captaincy and the fight and everything, with one part that I felt was it was slightly longer than I didn't know if the fight required so much of an attention. It could probably be a little shorter. That's one thing that I can remember, but it somehow at that point in time, it actually took off my attention from the listening side. But sharing that it could be a shorter version. That's how it landed on me.
Well, I think a way to approach editing is to be very clear of the bare bones of the story. The bare bones of this story, Geethanjali, is that at first your character was not too concerned with the Tamil-speaking students.
Yeah.
And so there was a certain arrogance in the character.
Yes.
Then the other person was appointed, and there was the shock that you had lost your position. Then you spoke to God, and your conscience answered you. And then for the long period of time, you changed your ways, and then you got the reward and the acknowledgement. So if you can, keep that bare bones in mind, then you could be able to tell that story in 3 minutes, or 5, or 7.
Okay. How long was my story, Eric?
I don't know. I think it was about 10 minutes. But what Jim is saying was that he felt somehow there was some extra detail along the way. I didn't feel that really, but it probably could be tightened up a little bit. But as I say, the positive way to tighten and to edit is to come up with the bare bones, and then try to omit things that are not necessary for those bare bones.
Okay. Fine.
Anybody else? All right. Let's go on. Mani, are you here? Mani Nachiappan?
Yes, sir.
Is your camera on?
Yes, Eric. Yeah.
I don't see you. Now I see you. Okay. Now there's a very bright light behind you and above you. Can you somehow turn out that light? There you go. That's better. You turned on the light in front of you. Good. Okay. Well, go ahead. Please introduce yourself and the story, and please tell us a story.
Yes. Good evening, all. Very glad to meet you. I'm Mani Nachiappan. Hope you're hearing me. I'm sounding good. If I'm sounding good, show me a thumbs up. Yeah, thank you so much. I'm the student of Eric. So I learned storytelling from our master Eric. So wish you a happy Teachers Day, Eric. I wanted to show my gratitude to you. With this, I wanted to start my story. The title of the story is Breakthrough. Breakthrough. Date June 13th, 6 p.m. Date June 13th, 6 p.m. My friend Shushant called me.
Mani, please, I'm so sorry to
Yeah.
interrupt, but I want you to start again, and I want you to look into the camera, because
Okay.
you're looking to the side,
Got it.
and we really
Got it.
feel left out. So,
No. How am I looking now? Is it fine now? Yeah.
Are you looking into the camera now?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, go ahead. Okay, so now once again, I'm introducing you. Mani, please take the stage and introduce yourself and your story.
Thank you so much, Eric. Myself, Nachiappan. I'm a student of Eric. I learned storytelling from Eric. So this is the second time presenting before the world audience. I'm privileged and honored to tell a story before you all. The title of my story is Breakthrough. Date June 13, 6 p.m. I got a call from my friend. His name is Shushant. He is not a regular friend. He's not a normal friend. He's the biggest celebrity. He is a star. He is an actor. He attained this fame in a short time. He did very few movies and became famous. I'm very happy that he is my friend. He is an intellect as well as an hardworking actor. I immediately started to his house the moment I got his call. While traveling, I was excited. Last time I visited, we had a good discussion. We deliberated a lot. This time also, I feel the same. I'm going to have a good day today because we are going to discuss a lot because we are friends. We became friends by sharing our book reading. Our common interest is book reading. I met him in a bookshop. We became friends after sharing each other the books we read. As I said, he used to read both spiritual as well as science fictional books. Last time I visited, he bought a telescope. He bought a telescope which is very costly, and he is a star. Star watching a star. So he showed me the telescope. I saw it. It opened up a new space in my life. We discussed, deliberated a lot, and became close. So those were the memories coming to my mind. So I'm pondering those good memories. And I went up to his apartment. I saw him sitting on a sofa. It seems to be he is waiting for me. Okay. I went inside and said, "Hi, bro. Hi, brother. How are you?" He said, "Yeah, going good. What is the reason why you called me? Are you inviting me for your marriage?" "No, man. There is a problem in the relationship. A small drift between the family and between the girl and me." "Then, have you signed any new movies?" I asked him. He said, "No, all got shelved. All got shelved." "Did you sign any new movie with a Hollywood director?" "No, it got dropped." "Oh. Did you buy any new book?" "No, nowadays I stopped reading books. Not reading much books. But too much of thinking is happening. The reason why I called you is I wanted to give all my books to you. the collection I have, I want to give it to you. Why? No, I'm feeling burdened. No, I'm feeling burdened. I want to give away all the things which I am owning. I wanted to get relieved. I wanted to go away from this busy life. And I wanted to live a very simple, happy, peaceful life. I cannot resist this trying time. You know me well. You know my health condition. You know the movies which I signed up were dropped. Problem in relationship. I'm not a good extrovert to attract friends. So I wanted to calm down. I wanted to pacify. I wanted to put things down, make it simple, slow it down, and sit back. I'm going to invest the savings in bank. With the interest which I'm getting it, I'm going to spend it for my rest of the life. I wanted to settle my family. Oh, is it? Okay. So things will change. Things will move on. Things will not be like this always. Don't worry. Calm down. I think you need a motivation. Have you seen any counselor? Have you discussed your problems with a counselor? No, I have seen many people, man. I was discussing with people. I'm struggling with these issues. They call it as bipolar disorder. So I wanted to find peace. I wanted to save the name and the fortune I have right now. We have earned some name in the society, so I wanted to retain those name and fortune in life. I wanted to give it to my family. Okay, is it in your control? The problems whichever you are facing, is it in your control? Is it 100% true? Hey, behave like a friend, man. You are not a counselor. You know, I think better than you. The reason why I called you is to give the books which I have. I don't want to keep it with me. Okay. Got it. Let's go and see the world outside. Come, let's go and see the stars which is shining, glittering outside through your telescope. Is it there? Yeah, come. He took me and we both together saw the stars. He started speaking about the stars. He started speaking about the moving star, shining star, slow moving star, fast moving star. He started many things about universe, which I never know. He spoke for 30 minutes. And I told him, okay, you are speaking many things about stars, which I never know about it. But you're a star for me. You're a star for the whole India. You're a star for whole Bollywood. You're a star for whole world. For me, you are the star. So we wanted to see you smiling, acting, dancing, singing. You have motivated millions of people in our life, day-to-day life, the whole country. By hearing to this, he said that you're speaking still like a child. You never understand the problem of a celebrity. You never know the lifestyle of a celebrity. You never know the demands of a celebrity, the health condition of a celebrity. You just speak from your perspective. These things and all I have already thought about, man. Okay. What else we can speak? No, I have a lot to speak, but you have a family. You go home. You'll speak over phone. No, I'm not going home. I'm going to stay in your home. But before that, I wanted to inform my family. Okay, he said. And I called my mom and I said, Mama, I'm staying in Sushant family, the Sushant house. And immediately Sushant pulled the phone from me, and he was listening to the voice of my mom. My mom asked, why you are staying in his house? The moment he heard the voice of my mom, the way she called me, he started crying. He didn't stop his cry. I didn't know what to do. So he cried, and I told, boss, I'm going to stay with you. I'm going to be with you tonight. But your mom is expecting you. You should go. You know, I lost my mom. Be with your mom. Go. He said, no, I'm going to stay with you. I stayed with him. He ordered food. We ate together. Again, we went back to the balcony, and we saw the moving stars, slow stars, fast moving stars, all the stars at that night. And we we ate and we went to bed and we slept. And before going to bed, he took a few pills, and I asked him why. He said that because for the health reasons I'm taking pills. Okay. Then we went to the room and we started sleeping. And many things were going in my mind. So I used to wake up for the alarms. When I woke up for the alarm, I saw he was still sleeping on the bed. But when it was 6 a.m., when I woke up, he was not on the bed. With a shell shock, I stood up and went out, and I saw Sushant standing in his balcony. I told him that, did you came here to see stars now? No, man, I am feeling upset. That's why I came out. Nothing to worry. No, I thought that you came out to see stars. Are you mad? Stars will not be visible in daytime. It will not be visible in daylight. Who said? I asked. Yeah, it's science, man. It's common sense. Stars will not be visible in daylight and daytime. I went inside his house and I searched for a mirror. I couldn't find a mirror in an actor's house. Then I took my phone and I went close to him. And I took my phone and I was clicking a selfie with him. And I showed him, see, I can see one star standing nearby me. Why you are not able to see that star? And he laughed to the core. His laugh didn't stop. He was laughing continuously. And he slapped me after that. And I slapped him. And we were chasing each other. Over to you, Eric.
Is that the end of the story? Mani, are you there? Just a moment.
Yes, Eric.
Okay, is that the end of the story?
Yes, it's the end of the story.
Okay, wonderful. As somebody wrote in the chat, it was a captivating narrative there. Now, does this story and this character have any connection to the actor Sushant who died recently?
Yes, that's
yes.
what is the connection between that Sushant and the Sushant in your story?
No, I brought Sushant only. I am discussing with Sushant.
Did you actually know him in real life?
No, Eric, it's a story.
Okay, so it's an imaginary story about just like I was talking to Donald Trump in my imagination. In your imagination, you were talking to Sushant.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Okay. Well, you know, it was clear from the story that the Sushant character was considering suicide, right? Because he was giving away his books.
Yeah.
Mani, you're still there, yeah? Yeah.
Yes.
So, and I think your character knew that, right? Your character was afraid that the Sushant character was considering suicide, isn't it?
Yeah. I suspect something. I don't know. His thought is suicidal ideation.
Yes.
But helpless, feeling helpless, wanted to live alone.
Yes.
He wanted to isolate himself.
And your character did not want to confront him directly about it, but and he did not want to say directly that he had these ideations, right? But in code, he was saying it by saying, I want to give these books, I want to change, and all of his concentration on the stars. That was his indirect way of communicating that he was thinking about leaving the world. Correct? Yeah.
Yeah.
It was very powerful. Yeah. Somehow it might be good to make it a little more clear that this is that this was an imaginary conversation you had. Well, how do you feel, people? Would it have been more effective or less effective if we would have understood that this was a conversation that Mani wishes he would have had with that character? Was there any need to explain that in advance? Barry, what were you going to say? Your mic is blocked. Barry, you've got to turn your mic on.
I know I couldn't find it for a second. I think perhaps either framing at the beginning or maybe just at the end to clarify kind of the points that Eric pulled out at the end, that this was an imaginary story based on a real person, and and I don't know, Mani, if it comes from the notion that you were a big fan of his, and so you felt a connection with him, and you know, kind of in the way that Eric, I don't know that I would say Eric was a big fan of Donald Trump, but Eric feels some kind of a need to express or connect with Donald Trump, and that's where the impetus for the story. So maybe to clarify it at the end, I don't know about the beginning because I was pulled in, and maybe if I had known that it was an imaginary, I might not have been pulled in as much as I was with believing that it was a real personal connection with a real person. But I think to clarify at the end might have helped.
Barry, I should tell you, because you're in the USA, and I'm also not fully plugged into Bollywood, but the actor Sushant, he was very young. I guess he was in his 20s or early 30s. Very handsome, very vital.
34.
Very intelligent, and it was such a tremendous shock that he committed suicide some months ago. And it was very personal, I know, for many Indian people, many young Indian people, that this fellow who it seemed he had everything going, that he would kill himself like that. So I think it was a personal, like when Robin Williams died some years ago, I had a similar sense of shock, but that was not as bad because he was senior and he had some very strong medical condition. It was not such a shock, but this was even more of a shock and very personal to a lot of Indian people.
And I think for people in the US, the death of Chadwick Boseman last week. The African-American actor who was in, oh my God, what's the movie?
That was not suicide, that was a...
No, that was not suicide, but still that personal connection that people were really, really shocked and and surprised.
So one theme of some of the stories today is an important conversation. So I think, Mani, you really took it seriously, and you had that conversation in there. And it brings out something that I like to remind people of with storytelling, and especially when there's dialogue. When one character in a story addresses another character, we, the listener, are in the position of the other character. Because when the Sushant character says, listen, I want to give you my books. I'm not sure how much longer I'm going to be here. Take my books. So I'm saying that to all of you. You are in the position of the friend who is with Sushant. You might be afraid that he's having these negative ideations. But what can you do, right? So you're thinking, what can I say to Sushant? What should I say to him? Should I ask him, Sushant, are you considering killing yourself? You know, but maybe you wouldn't want to say that because you wouldn't want to embarrass him, or you wouldn't want to put ideas in his head. But the point is that when there's a dialogue like this between two characters, the audience is not just watching it, the audience is in the middle of it, because you are in the position of one character and then the other. Because say the friend will say, Sushant, really, tell me, what is on your mind? I'm not going home tonight. I'm going to stay here with you. I'm afraid if I go home, something might happen. Huh? And so now you're in the position of Sushant. And you might say, no, nothing's going to happen. You can go. Why do you say something's going to happen? So you can guess, or you can hope what each character is going to say at every step of the way. But you follow what I mean about how the audience members are put in the position of one character after another. As you, the storyteller, reverses roles, your listener also reverses roles. And this makes for very strong emotional involvement in a story, even though the listeners and the storytellers are often not aware of this dynamic going on. But it is one way that the listener gets very involved emotionally. All right, any thoughts about any of this? Comments, questions? Does anyone want to say anything to Sushant? You want to, Sushant, we miss you. I didn't know you very well, but I'm sorry you went. Please come back.
I'd like to say to Mani that the connection that you made between the stars and the star was a beautiful metaphor. Beautiful.
But it was also dangerous, because we had the feeling that this star was thinking about going and becoming a star.
And becoming a real star up there.
Yeah,
right?
which means going to the heavens, which means dying. So it was a little scary.
Yeah.
You know, there are myths in different cultures about how when someone dies, they're cut into pieces and thrown into the sky and they become stars.
That's what they tell little children.
Okay. Oh, and now I must say something about the camera position. You are far, far above your camera. And so you are looking down at us. Here, I'm going to demonstrate it. It was like this. You're looking down at us. That's not the best way to talk to people. You don't want your camera far above you either. What you really want is to be looking straight ahead to the people you're talking to. So pile up a pile of books and put them beneath your camera, or your computer, your whatever it is, so that you can look people straight. You follow what I'm saying? Everybody? It's most effective to look people straight in the eye. Not down, not up. Okay. Sandhya. Well, okay, does anyone else want to say anything about that story, or? It's okay, we can move on? Good. Sandhya, are you here?
Yes, Eric, I'm
There
here.
you are, yes, good. Okay, please introduce yourself and your story and tell us a story.
Yes, so hello everyone, myself Sandhya Naren. I'm a banker by profession, but I love storytelling and I've recently started storytelling. So this is my first performance in front of a global audience. So I'm very happy and I'm very thankful to Eric. So shall I start? I hope I'm audible and I'm clear, right?
You're from Sandhya?
Yeah, thank you. So I'll just start. Just give me a few seconds. Okay, this is how Chakyar Kootu, a performance art in Kerala, starts. And my story is from an incident that happened during a Chakyar Kootu performance on stage. That is why I started the story in this way. So, before I begin my story, let me tell you a few sentences about Chakyar Kootu. It is an art of, it's a very high refined monologue narrated by a performer called Chakyar. He will be narrating stories from epics like Ramayana or Mahabharata or Puranas to the audience as a monologue. He will be telling in a poetic way, in a language that is a mix of Malayalam and Sanskrit. It will be understood only by elite class people. It will be a poetic performance. He'll be narrating the story, and we can say that it is something similar to the, it's a traditional way which is similar to the modern stand-up comedy, where he used to criticize socio-political events. He used to include all those elements. And he also had a license to tease the people sitting among the audience. I will give you an example. This is how the Chakyar would be telling if he was there today. Even now it happens, but I will just include my own element. Here are so many participants for our session, but some of them are hiding behind the cameras. God knows doing what. They may be eating, they may be sleeping, and some other daydreaming, and we don't know. Only God knows what those people are doing. No offense, it was just a humorous example. So this Chakyar would have a guy sitting in the background playing a copper drum, the sound of which I had made you listen to. It is a big copper drum called Midavu. So there will be a Nambyar sitting in the background playing this Midavu. Let me begin the story. This real life incident happened during 18th century in Ambalappuzha Krishna temple in Kerala. Chakyar was standing and narrating the story from Ramayana. And the hero of our story, Kunjan Nambyar, he was sitting in the background with the big copper drum Midavu playing. The Chakyar would be narrating like this. Rama, Lakshmana and Sita were going through the forest. Sita would see the deer and she would be asking to catch the deer. Ladies, they will have so many demands. So our Rama would go behind the deer. After some time, Lakshmana had to go in search of his brother. Lakshmana would ask Sita to not to cross this circle which he will draw, and he go. But ladies, again, they are fools. They don't have wisdom. No, they will do whatever is being told not to do. So Sita would cross the line, and the Ravana would come and to pick up the Sita and go. And poor Rama had to gather so many monkeys and go to fight with Ram. And the Chakyar turned backside. He was not hearing the sound of the drum. It was supposed to be heard. What did he saw? Our Nambyar Yes, poor Nambyar was dozed off. Chakyar got angry. You know what he did? And here is another monkey backside of me, sitting and sleeping during his duty. Hearing this, the audience burst into laughter. And hearing the loud sound, Nambyar woke up. He just woke up and he saw that all were laughing, and he realized that he slept off during the performance. He stood up and he said, I'm sorry, I don't know how this happened. I'm really sorry for that. How can you sleep during your duty? You know what mistake you did? Sitting and sleeping and enjoying in your dreams. You might be dreaming of some women, I know. Chakyar would continue his ridicule, and the audience would be keeping on laughing. Now, our Kunjan Nambyar felt humiliated, hurt, and insulted so much to get ridiculed in front of the audience. He said, I can't tolerate this anymore. No, I'm not going to perform again with you. I'm going. I'm not even taking this Miravu, my dearest instrument. I'm going. Saying this, Kunjan Nambyar left the stage. He went back to his house with a very heavy heart. He had mixed emotions. He was sad. He was angry. He wanted to do something to give a befitting reply to the Chakyar. That day night, his wife asked him, "Why did you leave the job? Already we are not earning enough to feed our kids. What will you do? Why did you leave the job and came back?" He said, "You don't worry. I have confidence in my talent. I have thought of a way." And the whole night, Kunjan Nambyar sat and wrote. He again changed the script. He wrote a beautiful story. And he had some plans. He was inventing a new art form. Yes. He called his friend who could play another instrument, a mridangam, and he would narrate the story to him. And they both decided to perform it the very next day. So the next morning, the sun rose, and Kunjan Nambyar, even though he was optimistic, he didn't know that he is going to mark the history of Kerala. Next day evening, as usual, our Chakyar was dun 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 dun. He was about to start Chakyar Kutu. A sound heard from not so far. "Nokeda nammude marge kidakkunna markada nee engu marikeda sheda. Nokeda nammude marge kidakkunna markada nee engu marikeda sheda." Where was that sound coming from? It was coming from just adjacent to our Chakyar. Another stage was built, And there stood our Kunjan Nambyar with his usual costumes, you know, which he made by himself, performing the story the script which he wrote. It was a story from Mahabharata. It was a story of Kalyana Saugandika, wherein Bhima, one of the Pandavas, would go looking for the exotic flower of Kalyana Saugandika for his wife Draupadi. And on the journey, he would encounter a monkey, none other than Hanuman, lying. And he would ask the monkey to give him way, to go away and give him way. And this way, Kunjan Nambyar started this line asking the monkey to give way, which was pointing at our Chakyar. As the performance started, the audience who were listening to Chakyar started moving from this stage to our Kunjan Nambyar stage. And within no time, entire audience moved from our Chakyar Kutu to Kunjan Nambyar's Ortan Tullal, because they could enjoy the story, they could understand it easily, and they loved the humorous tone also. Thus, Kunjan Nambyar won the hearts of the people, and he took a sweet revenge to a fellow artist. But the story did not end here. It has a twist. It has an anti-climax as well. Chakyar was so angry. He took up the matter to the king who ruled that time, Samudiri. Okay, the Samudiri king, and he had a favoritism towards our Chakyar because he used to perform praising the king, and Kunjan Nambyar was not willing to do that. He was satirist and poet. So the king said, "What is this new art form? It is not worthy of anything. I declare and order that this new art form should never be performed in this temple." And as the history goes, both Ortantullal and Chakyar Kuttu are even now performed and appreciated in Kerala, but Ortantullal is still banned in Ambalappuzha Krishna temple. But people appreciate, and even now people are incorporating, the artists are incorporating social element, just like Corona awareness. So many Ortantullals were performed incorporating Corona awareness matter. And it's a beautiful art form, which I request you can YouTube, you can search and get to know both Chakyar Kuttu as well as Ortantullal. And this was my story, and I love this story because this is how an artist took a revenge to fellow artists by creating an art, not through a verbal argument or anything. So that's all. Over to you, Eric. It was a small story. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you.
Well, your acting is great, and the singing was very wonderful, right? Let it be a lesson to all of us. When we add a little melody to our voice, everyone's ears perk up. We don't know what's going to happen next. We don't know what will happen, but it's thrilling somehow. So you did some of it in English and some of it in other languages. So that was wonderful. So I'm not totally clear on what makes this new art form a new art form. Is it just that the subject matter can be contemporary political and social content? Is that what makes it unique?
No, the costume, the presentation, there were a lot of differences between Chakyar Kuttu and Ortantullal. Ortantullal, it is jumping, the movement, jumping and dance. And the Chakyar Kuttu, it was some more complex. The language and the presentation was a bit more complex, but this one was simpler.
All right, well, that part wasn't totally clear to me. One possible suggestion is just to tell the story of one new art form instead of two. You know, this is also partly because I'm a Westerner. I don't have proper Indian culture background. Okay. but it wasn't so important for me to understand that totally, because your speaking was so clear, your communicating was very clear
Thank you.
and relaxed. Anyone else, comments, questions?
I just want to say, Sandhya, I think you were offered a great example of looking at the camera, because you were very consistent with that, and we really felt the connection with you. So wonderful on that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You know, we have to strike a balance between looking at the camera and looking at the images of people. We don't want to ignore the people, but to give the people what they want, we have to ignore them a little bit. Rajan?
Yeah, Sandhya, you said that you are a new storyteller, but I don't see that you are a new storyteller. You are perfectly, I could follow whatever you said. But Eric was telling you should take one art at a time. But her story rests upon the very idea is, yeah, art form is challenged by introducing another art form. That is her story. And therefore she has to bring two things. Of course, it's very difficult to follow, but she displayed the art form by showing the stage with a curtain, really a curtain raiser. Wonderful, I like it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I think somebody was about to say some feedback, Murali sir or somebody.
No? Well, how do you feel, Sandhya? Did you accomplish what you wanted to accomplish? Or what did you feel was especially strong in what you did? And how would you like to improve it?
Maybe I can do it a bit more better. I don't know how, but I can practice a bit more, and maybe I can bring in the entire costume or something. I don't know, but that is how I feel. I would have added some more elements is what I'm feeling. That's or maybe I'll take a course from you, and then I would know.
Yeah, I would, you know, I think you were telling primarily for an Indian audience who has an understanding of the various art forms. If you want to tell to, you know, people beyond India, I think you need to give a little bit more of the details of the various different art forms.
Okay.
And make it really clear how these new ones are, how they are different, how they are similar,
Yes.
and give more of those details for a non-Indian audience.
Okay, got it, Eric.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, let's go on. Uma Jairam, there you are.
Hi, Eric. Hi, everybody. Hope you're able to hear me well.
Yes.
Awesome. Okay. The title of my story is Thus Began the Dialogue with Death. Eric, I should thank you for choosing the topic conversations. It is just awesome. Conversations are always interesting, right? Be it between a child and a mother, be it between a student and a teacher, or between friends. It's always interesting. Conversations with nature has given us a lot of great poems. Conversation with between Krishna and Arjuna has given us the Bhagavad Gita. How many of you are parents here in the audience today? Just raise your hand. Barry, okay. Anyone else? Okay, okay. Awesome. Awesome. So have you ever come across your parents telling you to get lost, or have you ever told your children to get lost in a fit of rage? Just nod your head. No? Okay. Okay, understand. Okay, what would you do in such a scenario if you're being told to get lost? Today, we are going to see a story of a small boy who was asked to get lost by his father. Let's travel a little back in time. Thousands of years ago, there was a sage called Vajishrava. He had a son, Nachiketa. This boy, Nachiketa, was all about 10 to 12 years old. And as was the tradition in those days, he was sent to the Gurukula for his education by his father. Gurukula is a place where in India, you learn the core education, but also other than that, you learn to do the day-to-day activities, the household chores as well. So Nachiketa and a couple of his friends were given the responsibility of grazing the cattle and the animals in the Gurukula. Nachiketa had developed a friendship with the animals there. One particular deer he was very fond of. One day, it didn't get up. Nachiketa went close to the deer and said, "Get up, hey little one." It didn't move. Nachiketa was worried. His friend who was just standing near him, he said, "Nachiketa, he won't get up. He's dead." Nachiketa was wondering, "He's dead? What do you mean?" The other friend said, "Nachiketa, there is no life left in him. But don't worry, there is life after death in heaven. He must have gone to the heaven." Nachiketa didn't understand. Where is heaven? What do you mean there is life after death? Where is that? These boys couldn't find the answers. The confused students went to the teacher for the question that was troubling them. The graceful guru said, "Children, this is a very heavy question. Not even elders or devas has a definitive answer for this question. Each one should find out the truth for himself." Alas, they couldn't find the answers. They went back. After some time, Nachiketa went back home to his father. His father was conducting a sacrifice, a yajna. All the preteens are pretty curious, right? He was very curious. He was asking his father, "Father, what is this yajna all about? What is this sacrifice all about?" His father, Vajishrava, said, "Son, this is called as the Vishwajit sacrifice, where one gives away all his possessions." The yajna was happening. The sacrifice was happening. Nachiketa was observing. Vajishrava was giving away all the cattle, all the things that he possessed. The cattle, the cows that he gave were pretty old. They were too old to give any milk. They were very weak. Nachiketa felt very sad for his father. He's giving away weak cows that is not going to be good for anyone. All right, I'm here healthy. Maybe I can be of some use to my father. So he went and asked, "Father, whom are you going to give me to?" He didn't get any answer. Vajishrava didn't expect such a question, and he was busy in the yajna, obviously. And the curious preteens, they always nudge and nag their parents, right? So Nachiketa kept on asking, "Whom are you going to give me to? Whom are you going to give me to?" Now, Vajishrava was patient for a while. After a few times, he lost his patience. He said, "I am going to give you to the Lord of Death, Yama. Get lost." Oh, after the words have come out of his mouth, he was like, "What did I do? I told that I'll be giving my son to the Lord of Death, Yama, but he can't take it back." It was too late. Nachiketa was on his journey to Yama's abode. He went on. He went to Yama's abode. He waited there. He looked around for somebody to come and open the door for him. There was no one who asked him to come in. He waited there at the door. Probably Yama was busy, probably sometime a COVID time. Yama was busy with his work outside, claiming lives of people. After 3 days, Yama came. He saw a small boy who's standing in front of his house. Who is this? Generally, it is Yama, the Lord of Death, who waits at people's entrance to claim their lives. But there is this boy, there is somebody who's waiting at his entrance, waiting for him. He was curious. He came and asked, "Oh, little one, who are you? What brings you here? How long have you been standing here? The little one said, I am Nachiketa, son of Vajashrava. I've been waiting here for the past 3 days. Yama was startled. That is not hospitality. Not with the devas, not with the gods, right? So he wanted to compensate this little boy with 3 boons for having made him waited for 3 days. Thus began the dialogue with death. He said, ask, I'll give you 3 boons. You have waited 3 days patiently. I'll give you 3 boons. There goes the first boon. Nachiketa said, when I go back, I want my father to receive me happily. I want him to be cheerful. I want him to have the peace of mind. Please grant him that. This was simple for Yama. He said, granted. Look at the intelligence of the boy. He wants to go back from the mouth of death. And he's been granted. Second one. He said, I have heard that in heaven there is no hunger, there is no thirst, or there is no old age. Can you let me know what kind of sacrifice or what is the secret which people can perform to achieve this no hunger, no thirst, or old age? Yama understood this is a deep boy, and this boy has got the intelligence to understand. So he gave away the details of the sacrifice. And he also named it. Nachiketa, from today, this sacrifice or yajna will be termed after you. Nachiketa yajna. Go for the third one. Nachiketa politely, humbly asked, "O sir, the Lord of knowledge, tell me what happens to a man after death. I want to know the truth." Yama was startled. This is not a question he had expected a little boy to ask. I mean, that is a deep question. He said, even the gods do not know the answer for this, Nachiketa. Ask something else. Ask for 3 worlds. I'll give you long life. You can rule the entire universe as long as you wish. I'll give you beautiful damsels, chariots, elephants, horses. You name it, I will give it to you, but not this one. Even the gods do not know the truth, my dear one. Nachiketa remained undeterred. He said, who else can I go and ask? O Supreme Lord, you are the Lord of the death. You are the only one to know the truth. Nobody else can explain it to me well. I want to understand the answer for only this question. Yama was pretty impressed. He understood that this boy has a deep understanding. He started explaining about the Atman, which rides this body, which is the chariot, which is driven by our senses. The senses are the reins through which this body is being driven. And our intellect or the buddhi is the driver, is the charioteer. And unless and the manas is the reins, the mind is the reins, unless and until it is the Atman which is driving our entire life journey. This is a deep philosophy. Let us not go there. Why are we even talking about it? Yama gave all this philosophical explanation to a 10-year-old boy, a small boy. Why are we talking about this now? Me, from this story, I have got 3 key things, 3 things that I learned. 1, life is very short. Life, like Nachiketa, life gives you opportunities for a very small time. Make the most of it. Make use of it. In life, we are offered various choices like Shreyas and Preyas. Shreyas is from the word Shri in Sanskrit and Preyas is from the word Priya in Sanskrit. Shreyas, which means for your greater good, fortune, the preferable, and Preyas, which is pleasant for your senses. And if we remain, we should always choose the Shreyas over the Preyas, which is that which is for our greater good rather than which is pleasant for the time being. It could be very nice, it could be attractive, it could give us all the happiness that we want right now, but is it for our greater good? We should always choose the Shreyas. This is what I learned. And the third one, if we are persistent and steadfast in our aims, we can definitely achieve the goals, irrespective of, maybe we don't understand, we don't have the age, we don't have the understanding. It is beyond our possibilities. Who can expect somebody to go to Yama's abode, the Lord of Death, and come back? Nachiketa had the intellect and he was persistent with his thoughts. He went to Yama's abode and he was back to his father. So this is what I learned, which I want to share with you. And then this could be probably just a conversation between a little boy and Yama. But this is the core subject matter of one of the greatest Upanishads of India, the Kathopanishad. Please Google it and try and understand. It is highly philosophical. It talks about our journey of life and death. But Vivekananda, probably you might be knowing Vivekananda from India. He is one of the, he loves Kathopanishad and he always keeps quoting Nachiketa. Give me 10 Nachiketas and I will transform the entire universe. So Nachiketa is one of the very impressive characters of Kathopanishad. Thank you, Eric. Thanks for choosing this topic.
Fantastic. Now you gave 3 lessons that you learned from the story. If we had a lot of time and if it was a situation that enabled it, I think it would be good for everyone to tell what they got out of a story. Because, you know, once a storyteller tells the story does not belong to the storyteller anymore. It's then a shared thing that's out there. And, you know, as we're listening to a story, if we understand it, we are all developing our own ideas about the meaning of it. So it's good to have a conversation where everyone gets to volunteer their ideas in addition to the storyteller. Now, before we go on, Gayatri, can I ask you, it's a very beautiful beach in the background, but it's a little distracting because we all want to go to the beach. Can you possibly choose a virtual background that's not moving? I love beaches, but it stops me from thinking. Now, Uma, you have a particular gift. You talk to people, I mean, like we feel like we're in the kitchen with you, or we're at the dining room table, right? You're so generous and unself-conscious, the way you just talk and explain. And it's a certain way of being in Jewish culture. My family comes from Russia, the Russian Jews. They came from Russia to America 100 years ago. Now I come to India. The word we have for someone like this is a mensch. A mensch, M-E-N-S-C-H. It's someone who you can talk about anything with, and they'll talk about it, and then you'll feel better after you talk about it with them. So you have that way about you, which is wonderful. And I'm sure it's whether we're talking by video conference, whether we're in your dining room, it doesn't matter. All right. So that is great. Now I would warn you about one thing. You were talking about some very serious issues there, including somebody possibly dying. You might not smile so much. You were letting your smile dominate things a little bit, even when the characters were going through very difficult situations. So, you know, we have to give justice to the anxiety and the uncertainty sometimes that characters are feeling. And that may mean, as the narrator, to not smile at times a little bit. You follow what I mean? And I also must say, this term, get lost, it's an abusive term. It's almost a curse word. I mean, in my home, if a child says get lost to your parents, it's the child is in trouble. And a parent shouldn't say get lost to a child. I mean, nobody should say get lost to anyone else. So think about it, if that's an essential part of this story.
That is exactly what he said.
Well, then you have to integrate into the story that somebody's really being abusive to somebody else. That's a serious, that's verbal abuse. That's emotional abuse. And that's all the more reason not to smile. So, you know, I hate to be a fuddy-duddy about that, but get lost is unpleasant language.
Absolutely. And that is why he after having spoken that word, he realized, oh, what have I said?
Okay, good.
So, yeah, in a fit of rage, he said that.
Well, it would serve him right to really be afraid that he had lost his son in that case. I mean, I feel once a character behaves like that, I feel that character needs to be punished and or educated.
And Nachiketa was intelligent enough to ask Yama, when I go back, my father should receive me cheerfully.
Yeah, but I'm saying his father should have a fear that his son won't come back. His father should really regret it. I mean, I yearn for that father to you know, get that punishment and then change his mind about how he's behaving. I feel the father got off too easy. Anybody else about any of this? The way he tricked the god of death, saying, when I go back, can such and such happen? It's similar to how that lady tricked the god of death, right? What's her name? She said, I want to have many children by my husband.
Savitri.
Yes, isn't she did that also? And the god of death said, okay, you can have children by your husband. And then the god of death had to let the husband come back to life. So we should all keep this in mind. This is how we trick the god of death. It might come in handy someday. Sandhya Rajan, turn your mic on. Are you raising your hand? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. See, I was trying. Sorry. Uma, I never thought this Kadova Upanishad can be chosen for telling a short story on this forum. But it made me to think you can tell this story. And a couple of things, because the story, the Kadova Upanishad is such a philosophy and such a very serious subject. And see, here the father tells his son, get lost. When he questions his father that how can you donate useless animals to the Brahmins? So that is why he was angered. His son questions his father. That is one thing. Then he regrets it, as Uma said. That's one thing. Another thing, when he says that I will take my curse that you get lost, and I will take. He said, no. You said a word, and it should be kept. See, another value. See, when somebody says that it has to be valued. I said something. If I don't value my word, I am useless. That is the value given in this story. Therefore, to maintain the value of his father's word, Nachiketa insists that he must die. And when he goes there and he waits at the entrance of Yama's palace, Yama was not present and he was made to wait by the gods. I mean the G-U-A-R-D-S, gods. So there, Nachiketa is waiting, and when Yama comes back after 3 days, he was shocked. How can a guest can be made waiting? He regrets. And see, Yama is such a big, powerful the god. See, all the values are taught. So many things are taught. And that is why I was wondering, how come Uma has chosen this story for this short story for 7 or 10 minutes. Thank you. I am taking more minutes. Sorry.
Because it was a conversation between Yama and Nachiketa. The conversation was the topic.
Yeah. Agree. Good.
So, Eric.
Yes.
There's a question. My name is Ajit. So from Uma's, this is a question to you, Eric. Now, this particular story is coming from Upanishada, right? It's coming from this. I heard you say, Eric, that she could have shown the father in regret and put a lot of focus there. But I think the story was not about the father and the regret. The story was about what Nichiketa is doing and this. So if she had focused on the regret of the father, the story would have taken a complete different track. And I think that would have defeated the protagonist in the story and what she wanted to talk about as Nachiketa and his experience with the god of death. So I defer on that, Eric, that the regret could be a...
Then my suggestion would be, don't use this term, get lost. Just say that the father said, go away.
No, that's Eric, how you look at it.
Well, what I'm saying,
but
let me just finish. The reason I'm saying is when you bring in a term like get lost, which is verbally and emotionally abusive, it's a distraction. I was not able to focus on the boy's discussion with the god of death because I was wondering, who is this father? And how are we going to rehabilitate him? So and you're right, the story should not be about the father. So for that reason, I would suggest get lost is a very modern, colloquial English language term, which is not really related directly to these ancient Indian, the Upanishads or the scriptures. I would suggest don't bring in a modern colloquial thing like this if it's going to be a distraction.
Yeah, but when she said it, I didn't see the get lost as so abusive because a get lost in anger, the way we would see it here is not as probably what you're seeing. For me, it was like, okay, the father got angry and said, get lost. So this fellow asked a question. And in response to that question, the father said, I will give you to Yama. That's the anger component. So I would have not really put so much of weightage on the word get lost because, I mean, my father would have said so many times, go get lost from here. Right.
Well, but
so
okay,
it's the English that you're getting stuck up with. I'm getting stuck up with the emotion of it, and something very is very common. And I would like my friend side to know. So
the father saying the father saying get lost and then saying I'm going to give you to death, which means I want you to die. That's through me. I'm telling you.
I get it. But I'm just trying to show how in the story, for many of us Indians here, it could be just like, okay, fine, I heard it, right, Uma? I mean, I would have not got worried about the word get lost, neither that it's an anger. Yeah, and that is how I would have looked at it.
It was not just get lost.
This is right, Eric. So I think all of us Indians here, you would have heard it 1,000 times from our parents. Like, I mean, it is not, that serious. They would just say, get lost. I mean, it is very acceptable.
What would you say in Tamil? Well, is that kind of language only you spoken in English?
In Tamil, we say, Tolanjubo.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It means a similar thing?
Yeah.
And to say...
In Gujarati, they say, Marija.
Go and die. Marija is go and die.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, in English, we have drop dead.
Yeah, but no one really minds. I mean,
very harsh things to say. It distracted me.
I know that. I agree with you. But
okay, I'll keep that in mind, Eric. I'll keep that in mind. Probably a little mellowed down word could have been better.
Yeah, because the relationship between the father and the son and the father's emotional problems should not be the focus of the story. The focus of the story is the cleverness of the boy. Right?
Eric, the story is Nachiketa has to go to the Yamaloka. Yamaloka is the kingdom of Lord Yamadharma, right? It's the death god's place.
Yes.
Now, how he will go, young boy? So the story says that unless the father curse him, he cannot die because it is not age for death. So when he was received by Yama, you see, it is not in my account that your due date for death has not come. How come you are on my at my entrance? That is what the question raised by Yama to Nachiketa when he finds that boy in his palace, whatever. So therefore, the story rests on that word of Nachiketa's father.
Yeah, it's a catalyst moment.
Yeah.
And that catalyst moment, the way it lands for Nachiketa, gives him an action. And the catalyst, if it is not there, and if you diffuse it, then why the hell should he go to?
Okay, so
That's where I am struggling. I'm saying the get lost has important meaning to the whole story without getting trapped into how the son and the father's relationship is. It's about the son obeying the father and saying, okay, you have given me to the god of death, let me walk to the god of death's door and give myself in. And that is what the magic of the storytelling is, especially the way I say it in this. So I think you can't diffuse it. The story, if you diffuse it, will lose its power. My offer to Uma is like, that has a very important component. It shows me a way. It's a catalyst moment. It's where there are two diversion and the son takes a decision saying, I'll follow my dad's way of saying. So
I want that father to get his comeuppance.
Eric's point, he has a point anyway. Uma, you have.
I want to speak to the father. Father, the story has not ended for me. I want you to see that you shouldn't talk to your son that way, and that you're lucky that your son forgave you, and you're lucky. I think you got off very easy. You have a very bright son, and you got him back. And I hope in the future you find another way to get things done. I'm sorry, Pandya Rajan, go ahead. Yeah. And then we have to keep going.
Eric has a point anyway. But you started with saying, Uma, you were starting with, how many of you say that word to your children? So that exactly probably Eric is saying. He's not saying that you should not bring it in the story at all. So he is not that, because you have hijacked attention of all viewers, especially Eric Miller, to the word that. So that, anyway, this is an important word in the story, I agree. But it need not be so much asking the parents out there.
Common word in the Indian arena, right, Pandirajan?
Yeah.
It's a very common word in the Indian context.
The way of telling only we are talking. Okay. Now, Eric is saying, what do you ask the story listeners? How many of you are saying this word to you?
People say that every day.
Correct. Let us not highlight it.
Well, I think we should be more aware of the emotional and verbal abuse that we, inflict upon each other. But I will certainly tell you, worse things get said in my household on a regular basis. So maybe that's why I'm a little sensitive about it. Okay, let's go on.
The point is not the story, Eric. The point is not the story. The point is about Kathopanishad, which talks about serious things in life. Like we get to know about our true human selves. Google Kathopanishad and read it. Give it a reading. It's much more. It's a serious philosophy of Hinduism. It's one of the greatest Upanishads of all times. Just Google it.
And one thing I take from your story is how stories can bring up and explore very complex philosophical and theological issues. But in a story, if it's presented in the right way, it's presented in a way that is easily understandable. Okay, let us go on. Murali, are you ready? Please turn on your microphone and maybe tilt your camera a little bit so you're not just at the bottom of your screen. Yeah, very good. Okay, please introduce yourself and your story.
Good evening, everyone. This is Odysseus from Bangalore. I'm sorry, Murali Dhar from Bangalore. I just got a little carried away, I guess.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about Odysseus. As you all are probably aware of Homer's epic, the Iliad and the Odyssey, Odysseus spent 10 years fighting the war in Troy, and then another 10 years sailing back home to his lovely wife, Penelope. So I'm going to start with, I'll just give you a little bit of introduction from where the point, he is almost on the verge of touching Ithaca. But then, you know, some gods are with him, some gods are against him, especially Neptune. Neptune is determined to see that Ulysses doesn't reach home. But it is Neptune's daughter, the goddess Athene, who has always favored Odysseus. And so it is, he gets into a crisis, and then with the help of goddess Athene, he gets out of it. With great difficulty, of course, but then that is where he is. And now his ship is wrecked, and all his crew members are dead. And he has just reached the shore and just barely scrambles on and gets into a deep sleep. Now, this island was ruled by very wealthy seafaring people. It so happened that the king's daughter, the lovely Nausicaa, had come down to the river with her maids, and they were all playing with a ball, and it splashed into a swirling pool of the river. So this narrative will now commence from Ulysses' point of view. I heard some maids shrieking with laughter, and their cries awoke me. I clambered out of the bushes, covering my naked sea-tossed body with leaf branches. The servant girls squealed when they saw me. However, the princess calmly asked me who I was and how I came to be there. Ulysses: Princess, your beauty is so great. Are you a goddess or a mere mortal? In either case, I stand here at your mercy. My ship was wrecked in the great storm last night. My crew drowned, and I have lost everything. For once, it looked as though luck favored me. The people of the island respected all who risked their lives at sea. And the princess took me to her father, and when the king learned that it was Odysseus on his way home from Troy, he prepared a great feast in my honor. He then ordered a ship to be made ready to take me home. Not only that, he also gave me a chest with rich gifts, sumptuous robes, a golden cauldron, and a handful of jewels. I couldn't believe my luck. I thought the tide was finally beginning to reverse. The ship carried me home from my rocky kingdom on the island of Ithaca. Now, after 20 years, I was far from certain what sort of welcome I would receive. And so I asked to be put on shore at a quiet harbor away from the town. And there I hid my sea chest in a secret cave and wrapped myself in beggar's rags. Better to be safe. Wearing this disguise, I climbed a rough path. I knew this part of the island where the pigs were kept. As I approached the hut of the pig's keeper, some fierce dogs rushed out at me. They would have torn my limbs, and that would have been a fine welcome indeed. But just in time, the keeper appeared and called them off. He sternly rebuked me. You should be more careful, for the gods would be angry with me if my dogs ripped apart an innocent stranger. If you are indeed an innocent stranger. I recognize this man as my old servant, Eumaeus. He was a good man, and he honored the Greek tradition of giving food and shelter to strangers. In fact, In the Greek language, there's just one word for both stranger and guest, because all strangers should be honored as guests. That night, the two of us sat for a long time talking while Eumaeus told me the latest happenings in Ithaca. He told me his master Odysseus was away for 20 years and in all probability was dead. But of course, his loyal wife, Penelope, wouldn't believe it. And now the palace was filled with all kinds of scoundrels who ate his food and drank his wine. They wanted Penelope to pick one of them to marry, but she kept refusing because she was loyal to Odysseus. And then she thought of a plan. She told them that she wouldn't marry until she had finished sewing her wedding dress. So she worked all day, and in the night, she undid all the work. So she kept stalling and left the suitors frustrated. Meanwhile, Telemachus, Odysseus' son, had taken a ship and gone in search of his father. But he had no luck and had no news yet. So he was expected any day now. Meanwhile, the suitors of Penelope had set up a watch at the harbor, and they planned to ambush and murder him because he was the only obstacle to their way to the throne, to the palace. I listened to all this, but I didn't reveal my identity to Eumaeus, even though he was a loyal servant, but I thought this was not the right time. The next morning, the swineherd pointed me on the road to the town. I set out on my way, and could you believe it? I saw Telemachus, who had just reached there, and he had also taken the back route to reach the palace to avoid the suitors. So there we walked along, a tramp and a prince side by side. The wise goddess Athene perhaps took pity on our plight and intervened. She made me appear as my true self, younger, stronger, and richly dressed. And Telemachus was absolutely amazed to recognize me and see his father, who had left him as a baby 20 years ago. And he knew that this transformation from a beggar to a richly dressed person was only through the intervention of the gods. It was such a moment for us. We embraced each other, and it looked like all the burden which I had been carrying was lightened at the sight of him. I hugged him and we cried on each other's shoulder, and then we calmed down and hatched a plan. We knew we had very little time. So we decided that Telemachus would return to the palace and I would follow on dressed as a beggar and accompanied by the swineherd. And no matter how many insults my wife's suitors flung at me, we would keep our tempers till the moment of the rightful revenge. So I and the swineherd walked towards the town, and as we neared the town, we noticed a pile of dung and rubbish. Lying on top of it was a sad old dog who had been cast out of the palace by the suitors. I had, of course, recognized the dog. It was my old dog, Argos, and in his prime, he had been a fine hunting hound, my favorite. Now, poor chap, he was all but broken. But the moment I came near, he smelt me. He lifted his muzzle from the dung heap and thumped his tail. It gladdened my heart. I went over to him to pat him. Argos licked my hand and was happy probably for the first time in many years. But sadly, a few moments later, he breathed his last. I just hope you may didn't see my tears. We entered the palace. We found the suitors feasting. I went around the tables, begging for food. Some of the suitors threw me some scraps, but their leader was more cruel. He turned to the swineherd and said, "Keeper of pigs, why do you drag this old corpse into our dining room? Don't we have enough beggars and pests in this town? Now kindly throw him out before I do much worse to him." Eumaeus the swineherd replies, "My lord Odysseus was always kind and respectful to old soldiers who were down on their luck. It is his food and wine that you are helping yourself to, and he would gladly spare a few morsels." At this, the leader of the suitors flew into a mighty rage. "Fine words, swineherd, but this is what I think of your advice." With that, he picked a chair and flung it at me. It hit me on the shoulder. At this, all the suitors burst into laughter and started to pelt me and the swineherd with food. Fortunately, we kept our cool and retreated further into the palace. Here, Eumaeus found the old nurse who had looked after me as a baby. He asked her to fetch some hot water and told her to bathe my feet. She fetched hot water and began to do as she was asked. As she washed me, she couldn't help but notice a scar on my leg, which I had caught hunting as a young man. A boar had charged at me and dug his tusks into my leg. Of course, she recognized the scar at once. "My lord," she screamed in delight, "you're home at last. Let me rescue your poor queen who has been suffering and let her know this wonderful news." Ulysses says, "Hold still. One of the servants might hear her rejoicing and my secret will be out. Don't breathe a word to her soul, not even to Penelope, until I tell you." And then the old nurse swore to me that she would keep her word and not tell anyone. I walked back along the corridor. A maid spat at me and told me to get out of the palace with my begging bowl. Later that night, I sat with my son Telemachus and we plotted what to do next. The time was of the essence. And after a great deal of thinking, I told my son he must tell his mother to call the suitors together and tell them she had made up her mind to hold an archery contest. She would marry the man who could string a husband's old bow and shoot the straightest arrow from it. Penelope agreed to this idea after Telemachus told her, because she knew that the only man who was strong enough to string her husband's bow was her husband himself. She thought the contest was a cunning way to show the suitors that not a single one among them was the equal of her husband. The next morning, the suitors gathered in the dining hall for the contest. They came with great hopes. They set a target at the end of the room, and Telemachus handed Odysseus' great bow to the first suitor to try his aim. But the suitor couldn't even bend the bow, let alone fire it. All the others laughed at him for being so feeble, but not for long, for none of them had the strength to string the bow. So finally, their leader, Antinous, the arrogant man, took it in his hands, and though he could bend it just a bit, he was far from able to hook the string over its end. He screamed in frustration, "Fair Penelope must be laughing up in her chamber. A fine trick this is of hers, for there's no man alive who could string this bow." And then I said, "I was once handy with a bow and arrow. I pray, let me try my hand." At this, all the suitors laughed at my boast. But Antinous said, "Certainly, if you string the bow for me, I will reward you with gold. If not, I shall beat you within an inch of your useless old life." I prayed to the goddess Athene and picked up the bow and tried it for weight, balancing it in my hand. The suitors mocked me for the display. They jeered, "He thinks he's an expert." Then I placed the bow upright on the ground. I leaned into it and hooked the string over the end with ease. The suitors were astounded. Then, I think probably the realization sank in that the beggar was the king whose hospitality and palace they had been abusing and whose wife they had been wooing. Unfortunately, the realization came too late to save their skins, for I was soon letting arrows fly from the bow, picking them off one by one. Some men charged at me with their swords and spears, but I was swift at letting the arrows fly. And with the help of Telemachus, I dealt with all the suitors, and at the end of the battle, not one was left alive. Now, I told Telemachus to fetch Penelope. But when Penelope saw me, she was not sure, after so many years, that it was really me. I was shocked. So she decided to test me. She called the old nurse and told her to move the bed out of our room and prepare it for me in the next room along the corridor. I protested. How can this be? If it is my bed, nobody could move it, for I made it myself. And one of its pillars is an olive tree that grew on the spot where I built the bedroom with my own hands. Then Penelope knew that the man before her was truly her husband, for whom she had waited so loyally for 20 long years. She threw her arms around me and wept for joy. Truly, this was the moment I was waiting for. I had finally come home. Although I was overjoyed to be home, that was not the end of my travels, for Odysseus always longed to go and see new places. And after some time, I again set out. But that is another story. Thank you.
Okay. I think that's great. You have such a sense of making things real. You visualized all of it, and we could visualize all of it, and all of the places and the relationships. You have a very good sense of conjuring reality.
Thank you.
I missed the emotional reunion with the faithful servant, but he did have the emotional reunion with the dog, with his son, and then with his wife a little bit.
Yeah.
Maybe there could be somehow a little more emotion from you sometimes.
Yeah.
For example, when he does string that bow, and when he does shoot arrow after arrow to kill those men. I mean, we're sorry that he has to kill those men, but there's no other way. But that's, you know, the adrenaline should be flowing at that point for the characters involved, and also a little bit from the storyteller maybe. But I think part of your style is an understated, grave style, which I appreciate.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Any thoughts? When I hear that story, it reminds me of the similarity with that scene in the with where Draupadi. They're doing a contest for who's going to marry Draupadi, right? It's also with a bow and arrow.
True.
It's not to string the bow, but it's to hit a target.
Yeah,
but I think in those days and epics, the ancient epics, the bow and arrow was really the symbol of the strength, the power of the hero.
If you look at our Greek, Roman, and Indian mythologies, there are a lot of similarities in terms of, you know, battles being fought, you know, over a period of time. And if you look at the Ramayana, it's again somebody's wife who's kidnapped, and then they go in search of her. And if you look at the Iliad also, it's like that. Menelaus' wife is kidnapped by Paris, and then all the Greeks go and so.
That's right. Helen was kidnapped and taken to Troy. Like Sita was kidnapped and taken to Sri Lanka.
Sri Lanka, yes. And
they say about Helen, she had the face that sailed 1,000 ships.
Yes. Was this the face that launched 1,000 ships?
Launched 1,000 ships, correct. I'm sorry.
No, that's right. Very nice.
And I don't think it was that she was so beautiful, really. It's that she was the wife of one of the leading kings of the Greek area. So they couldn't let that pass. But okay, I think maybe we're behind schedule. We have one more storyteller. Rinah, you've been very patient. Does anyone want to add anything, or shall we have our final storyteller? Barry, go ahead.
I just want to add quickly that Murali, I appreciate, you know, going into character and telling the story from his viewpoint, and it allowed us to think of him. And I'm not sure if this is your style or particularly what you were thinking for Odysseus, but to think of him as such a calm, cool, thoughtful, patient man, and it really came across nicely.
Thank you. I thought he went through quite a bit, you know, to what should I say, to survive. I think he had great stamina, you know, so many adventures, and getting the best of gods and demons was not easy for him. So
he was away for 20 years.
Yes.
10 years he had to fight in Troy, and then it took him 10 years to get home. In part because these different goddesses were trying to keep him for themselves.
Yes.
But
well, he had a good time with Circe, don't forget.
Yeah, but he wanted to get home to his wife.
Yeah.
Okay.
She's the one who had patience. She didn't go anywhere.
Yes. That way he was lucky. I mean.
Yes. Okay, Rinah. Now it is your. Just say hello. I want to make sure the mic is okay. I hear a little bit of disturbance going on. Go ahead.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes. Stay some distance away from your microphone. I think.
Is it distorted? Should I sit back farther?
I think that'll help. Yes.
Okay. I can also turn it down a little bit.
Yes, turn it down a little. There's a little bit of disturbance.
How is that? Is that better?
I think so. Yeah.
Better?
Yes.
Sandhya, is it better? Okay. Okay, well, my name is Rinah Sheleff. I'm originally from Highland Park, Illinois, and I've lived in Israel in a town called Ra'anana, which is outside of Tel Aviv, for many years. And I hope you understand my American accent, because I've been learning to understand a lot of different accents that I've been hearing in the storytelling. I won't tell you too much about myself, because I think my story will speak for itself. And then if you have questions afterwards where I went with everything, then I'll tell you a little bit more. So when I was, did I say I'm from Israel? Oh, well, Tel Aviv. If I say Tel Aviv, that's clear, right? Okay, all right. When I was a little girl, my mother used to say to me, you should have been born a cat. A cat. Why? Because a cat has 9 lives, and there's no way that you're going to be able to do everything that you want to do in just one lifetime. Well, she was right. I want to be a writer like Jo March in Little Women. No, said another self of mine. I want to be Annie Oakley, a cowgirl, and perform at rodeos with Buffalo Bill. I love riding horses. Jewish girls don't become cowgirls. Jewish girls are expected to do something meaningful, something to serve the community. You could be a doctor, maybe go off to Africa like Albert Schweitzer. Are you kidding? Have you seen my grades in science classes? No, I have to do something that requires self-sacrifice. Like Henrietta Zoll, who saved thousands of children from the Holocaust and brought them to Israel. Or Hannah Senesh, the Hungarian Israeli poet who parachuted behind enemy lines and tried to save Hungarian Jews from the claws and the clutches of the Nazis. It's true, she was captured, she was hanged, but people still read her poetry and her legend lives on. And this debate went on for years, all through my adolescence, all through my young adult years. In college, I couldn't decide on a major because everything was so interesting. And I would just say to myself over and over again, who am I? What am I supposed to be doing? Who is my true self? In my junior year of college, I heard myself asking this question when I went to Israel, to the Hebrew University, and I was sitting on the banks of the Dead Sea, looking at the full moon and asking the moon, who am I? What am I supposed to be doing? Who is my true self? Well, on the way back from the Dead Sea to the kibbutz where I was staying, I fell into a ditch and I broke my ankle. When I was in the hospital, I met a physical therapist. In Europe, I think you say physiotherapist. In America, you say physical therapist, but you know what they do. She taught me how to walk on crutches with a very heavy cast, a plaster cast. And I looked at her and I said, physiotherapy, that's a good profession. People need physical therapy. It's meaningful. Israel needs physical therapists. And of course, I was planning to come back and live here. So I went back to the States and I switched colleges and I graduated 2 years later as a physical therapist. And 4 days later, I was on an El Al plane back to Israel. I actually worked in my profession for about 3 years. And I worked with adults and I worked with children, and I knew that I was doing something meaningful. But there was something missing. Something else inside of me felt unfulfilled. Then one day, a friend of mine came waltzing into my room and said, you have to do something more creative. You have to use your imagination. Here, do this. And she handed me an advertisement for a journalist for an English language journal coming out of Israel. Oh, well, I do like to write. So I applied for the job and I was hired. And it was enjoyable. And I traveled a lot around the country. And it was fulfilling in a way, but was it meaningful? So I went on like this debate went on inside of my head, and I finally sat with a colleague of mine, a very good friend who's also my spiritual mentor. And I said to him, Yehuda, what am I supposed to be doing with my life? Who am I really? He looked at me and he said, well, that's easy. You're a dancer. I'm a what? A dancer? Me? The kid who used to drop out of ballet classes because she would get dizzy spinning around in a pirouette? Or the one with the tight hamstrings who couldn't do all those gyrations that you needed to do in modern dance? Or the one who could never quite remember which way to turn in circle folk dances? Me, a dancer? Okay, maybe that's the what. Maybe that's the why even, because Yehuda said you don't have to be that kind of dancer. You just have to express yourself with your body. Oh, okay. But where am I going to do this? And who is going to help me find this? And most important, when? I kept it somewhere in the back of my mind as the years passed. I went back to the States for a little while. I got married. I came back to Israel. I had a daughter. I had a son. I did all kinds of translation works, all kinds of things. And then one day, somebody told me about a South African woman who had just moved to my town and was looking for English-speaking people who shared her political views. So we didn't have telephones in those days, so I drove over to see Vivian. She invited me in and she said, I'm so happy to meet you, but I can't really talk to you now because I'm on my way to a dance class. Would you like to come with me? You can watch. Sure. I got into her car and we chatted like old friends, and she drove off into the neighboring town and pulled up in front of a building that had the name, the Art of Movement Center. Interesting. We went inside and she introduced me to the owner and the instructor, Aryeh Kalev. Aryeh had a smile that lit up his face. He had a handshake that was so warm and welcoming, and he said, why don't you come and join us? You don't have to sit on the sidelines. Come and dance with us. So I did. Well, the class began like any other dance class. Aryeh stood in front of us. We stood in lines. He opened his arms. We opened our arms. He skipped across the studio. We skipped across the studio. He curved his back and bent his knees, and we curved our backs and bent our knees. And then he went down on the floor and came up again. And we went down and we came up again. And then he said the words that changed my life. He said, now you do it your way. Find the way that your body wants to go down to the floor and rise up again. What is the easiest way, the most enjoyable way for you to go down and up? Well, I went down and I came up and I swiveled and I came up. And I did it fast and I did it slow and I did it like this, and I did it flowingly, and I had the most amazing conversation with my body. That night, I went to a gathering of friends, a group of women who used to gather. We would meet once a week. It was the beginning of the women's movement, the feminist movement in Israel. And we used to come in jeans and sweatshirts and very casual clothes. But I came all dressed up as if I were going to a party. And they said to me, Rinah, why are you so dressed up? Where are you coming from? And I said, I'm celebrating. I think I met my true self today.
Okay.
That's it.
Yes. So then, well, what kind of career have you had in dance?
So now I'm a movement instructor, and I'm a storyteller, and I'm a voice and movement therapist. And in between, I've also taught Bible stories using the arts. I mean, I'm still do this and this and this and this and this and this and this.
The early training and work in physiotherapy is obviously it's part of this now.
No, I thought when I did my, as a physiotherapist, I also worked as a childbirth educator, like natural childbirth, helping people have control of their bodies when they give birth. And I think at that point, when I began to go into movement more seriously, and I actually learn it and get a degree in movement education and so on, at one point I realized that physiotherapy was the opening. Yes. It was the first link leading me into a deeper and deeper and deeper connection with the body. Yeah. So that's my story.
Wonderful. Rona, did you want to say something? You got to turn your mic on.
Yep. So, so I've been sort of incognito here. I'm gardening. So, Rinah, right?
Rinah.
Rinah. So, as somebody who's involved with the dance community for 37, 38 years, I absolutely love the line when you said, and I wrote it in the chat, that you had the most amazing conversation with your body. Because part of what, because I remember when I went to the first dance, I was like, what am I doing here? Dancing with all these strangers by myself kind of thing. But eventually, you know, I got involved with this community and I realized that if I just closed my eyes in that one moment and just not worry about what anyone else thought, but just move and feel what my body wanted to do, that's what sort of kept me coming back. And it's been a lifelong thing for me and part of what I do. I'm a movement specialist also in my work. I teach storytelling through that lens. And improv is part of what I'm doing over the years. So I just absolutely love your story.
Thank you. Who was your mentor in movement?
I didn't want the organization is called Dance New England. I live in Massachusetts. And there are people beyond New England who come to our events. We have a summer camp, typically, not this year, obviously, but we have a summer camp that all sorts of dance, African, contact, tango, partnering, different things, but a lot of improv-based stuff. Taking classes with Andrew Harwood. I don't know if you know him, Canadian contact teacher.
No.
Yeah, lots of different people.
My great inspiration is Anna Halprin, if you know the name. Anna Halprin from California.
Yes, I do know the name. I don't know her work, but yeah. I'd love to talk to you sometime.
Okay.
Yeah. As you were telling, Rinah, your facial expressions were so strong and clear. When you see the recording, you'll see. So, you know, when we hear a story like this, we have a feeling that the person is going through different stages, gathering different skills along the way, and that she's going to end up having found herself as a storyteller, because she is such a great storyteller, and she's done all these things relating to storytelling. So it's only natural that she would put it all together and become a storyteller. And so this was the case with you, and like many storytellers, you're also you use it as part of your healing work.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. That was a very satisfying, I'm searching for myself story.
Absolutely. I'll tell you another little anecdote that I had this conversation with Fania, who's is in the rectangle just beneath me, at least on my screen.
Mm-hmm.
And we talked about how some people move vertically and they move, you know, higher and higher in a particular profession. And then there are horizontal people who do a little of this and a little of that and a little of this. And sometimes it comes together and sometimes it just stays separate, but you go back there every once in a while. And I was talking to my daughter about this a few months ago, about the fact that there are people who are they just know where they're going. You know, they're just beamed in a certain direction, and they develop, and something stays behind. Also, people know what they've done. People recognize what they've done. And like some of those people I mentioned in the story, and she said, and I was talking about a friend, and she said, you know, yes, but she said she's an eagle. And she just goes straight for, she knows exactly where she's going. She said, you're not an eagle, you're a hummingbird. And you take a little of this, and you take a little honey from there, or a little nectar, and you bring it over here, and you bring a little nectar over here, and you bring it over there, and you kind of spread it around. And that's basically what I do. So if you say to me, tell us how your career developed, I'll say, I'm a hummingbird. And the nectar really is all those different voices saying, what about me? What about me? It's like sibling rivalry. You know, you dance, and then the storyteller or the writer says, what about me? Well, you know, what about me? So you have to keep them all happy.
You're lucky that you found a path that manages to integrate and utilize all of them.
Mm. Yep, I am.
Okay, well.
Barry, I see you grinning. I have to hear what Barry wants to say.
Well, I'm appreciating the structure of the story, that, you know, so often a story creates a large problem and the character has to get over the problem. I think about Murali's, you know, the Odysseus story, which the drama is implicit. And your story, the drama is there, but it's like, what's going to happen next? It's episodic, and each, as we've said, as you said, the hummingbird, it builds. But the implicit drama is just, you know, how will she find who she really is? And so I appreciate that it doesn't have big drama in it, but each moment builds and adds a little bit to what has been established before. And it creates the full picture of who you are and communicates who you are.
Well, there was drama, but there is also, we knew throughout that the drama is going to end well, because the proof is in front of us.
Yeah. It's kind of like a, you know, pointillism, where when you stand up close, you don't see anything, but when you move back, and I so appreciate the opportunity to be able to tell my story, to tell this, because it really has helped me see a much clearer image of where I've been and what I've done. And I mean, I love the title of Conversations. And then I realized that's what I've been doing all my life, is having these internal conversations.
And I think it resonates with so many of us. And Renu, I hope I said that right, said in the chat, you know, that we all have conversations with ourselves, and we all kind of slowly, or not all, but many of us evolve through a variety of experiences and of careers even, or of iterations of ourselves. We evolve and build who we are.
Many people in my workshops and courses, their life story follows the general pattern of that their family encouraged them to do something practical, technical or technological or relating to numbers, and they did it. But it was not satisfying, and so now they're doing something more on the people side. It's like people who are working as an engineer or in a corporation, and they got involved with the human resource department and in training and soft skills, and that has led them to storytelling and creativity. So they've had to refine and reinvent the creativity that they experienced as a child, which they had lost for a while. But this is not the case in your life story, because you were on a artistic path, I think, from the beginning, or an expressive path.
Yeah, I just didn't know it for a long time. Right.
Didn't know exactly what form it would take.
Yeah.
And again, I'd like to add just a word, please.
Yes, Fania, go ahead.
Very well. If you remember last time, I mentioned how sometimes something we say goes so far as to affect someone else. And here there was a dance instructor who said something very trivial, like, well, now try it your way. Find your way to dance. And that changed someone's life. And now, as Rinah is telling us the story, I believe many of us can relate to that and realize that maybe we already have inside of our heads a voice telling us maybe something we already heard before. And now we can search within ourselves for those words that may change our route.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Maura or Mary Jana, did you want to say anything? You've both been very quiet. Maura, yeah, good.
I wrote something in the chat. I really found it very moving, and yeah, I'm grateful for that story. It was very inspiring for me. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hello, Eric Pushkar here.
Despite best efforts, we've gone over time, but somehow it worked.
Yeah.
Hello.
Okay, and it's lovely to see Rona working in the garden. My wife has developed a garden on our roof here in Chennai. We're in a neighborhood where there are not many trees, but she has created a garden on our roof. So I think gardening is one of the responses that people are doing in the face of these chaotic times.
So next time, Eric, you will sit in your roof garden, and then we'll have this storytelling.
Well, it's possible. Yeah, my wife does. I mean, she's a counselor and trainer, and she does a lot of Zoom sessions from her garden. Yes.
It's very pleasant to the eyes, but then it gets late.
It's not as beautiful as garden as Rona has, but it's we're developing.
But you don't know that, Eric. I'm just pulling weeds mostly right now.
Very good. Okay, so shall we close the session?
Yes.
Very good. Okay, so to be continued by email. Okay, thank you very much, everybody. And remember, Barry is doing that research. Please send Barry, you please send an email, and we'll get that together. Very good. Okay, thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Good morning.
Bye.
Bye.